I was looking at like my P&L numbers and my margins, and I just like kind of came to the realization that if I had my own brand, my margins would be way higher. My numbers don't look as big, but I'm actually making more money than I did before because I'm not taking a lot of losses. And you have to find something that interests you, because people believe you when you actually believe in your product. You kind of transition from thinking like pharmaceuticals and things like that is normal, and then you're like, wait, this isn't that normal.
Or one of the biggest threats that people face.
Like, some brands don't care if it works for you. They just want you to continue to buy it.
What do I do there?
It actually means your mitochondria is not working correctly. If I start throwing in like personal, holistic, random crap in there, people are gonna be like, what the frick is this girl even talking about? I was like, dude, I don't make 10 grand off my Discord. Like, I'll tell you that right now.
Oh man, like, is this dead? Like, do people not like this?
If you have people that are having to constantly pay you, they have to have constant problems, and you have to have constant solutions to the problem.
That's not what I'm talking about though. It's like, dude, like, let it go. You can't get that upset over really small stuff. Oh shoot, like I just lost 12K, like that's really bad. But I was like, all right, I gotta keep going. What did I do wrong? I'm not gonna do this again. Let's keep going.
I think I made 57 grand on Stanley Cup's profit in like a 3-month period.
You need to become independent and only be dependent when necessary. And she's like, why don't you ever want to help me? I'm like, Mom, I will help you. I want you to try on your own first and then come to me when you can't find the answer.
We've been talking for like 6 months. Did you ever do that first thing? And it's like, well, no. All right, like this is kind of over. Based on like kind of the state of everything right now, what would you recommend for someone or push them towards?
What up, y'all? You see me with the sunglasses on, so you know it's an important message before the podcast. We need your help to grow this podcast. Last year, it was like a side hustle to us, fitting with the title. But this year, we want to grow it. We want to make it a bigger and bigger thing, and we need your help to do that. We need the people that actually love listening to us to give us valuable feedback for us to grow this podcast. So below, in the description of the YouTube video, there will be a little Google form. Please fill that out. It's not long. It's like 8 questions, but it'll give us some data to go on throughout the year. Not only is this valuable data that will further our podcast career, but it will enter you to win a $100 Amazon gift card. Your chances are probably pretty high too, because it's not like we have 1,000 listeners. I don't know, 30 to 50 people fill it out, so your chances are pretty high. You have until February 1st to do that, and then we're going to cut it off. We'll do like a live drawing or something like that, but me and John would both highly appreciate if you could fill out that form. Enjoy the podcast, and have a wonderful 2025. Peace.
What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Side Hustle Experiment podcast. Today we have Noelle with us. Noelle does a little bit of everything. I've known Noelle for about 2 or 3 years now. We go back and forth in the DMs. She does the Amazon influencer program, TikTok shop. She does online arbitrage. She's starting a private label brand, and I think she has a Discord. So she does a lot of stuff, and we're going to have a lot of stuff to talk about today. So thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, there's so many different topics to cover. We may not cover them all, but that's okay.
Well, let's get started with where did you begin with all this entrepreneurship stuff? Like, how'd you get into all of it?
Yeah, so I started back in 2021 in March. Pretty much I had my first kid and I wanted to stay at home. I was working like 40 hours in a grocery store and I just like hated it. It was what I did all throughout like my early like 20s. So it's what I knew and I was good at it, but it's like, you know, I didn't want to go up in management. It was kind of like, this is just a step. And so I was like, okay, I just need to find something to do from home. So like I went to Google or YouTube and I just was like, things to do from home. And, you know, you see drop shipping, Etsy, all this stuff. And I was kind of dabbling in a little bit. I actually bought a drop shipping course. Within a week, I like asked for the refund because I'm like, this ain't for me. This is like sketchy for me. And then I got into like eBay. eBay is what I saw, like going to garage sales. And it was like, there's a lot of garage sales happening at that time. And I love garage selling. So I'm like, okay, like that's fun. I get to like use this as an excuse to go and like buy stuff. So I was selling on eBay and I was starting to get it picked up. But then I started seeing on YouTube like recommendations of like Walmart clearance shopping. And I'm like, oh, like that's like a little bit different. Maybe I could scale that a little bit more than like garage sales and eBay. Because I was kind of doing Amazon books for like a few weeks during that period and I hated it. I hated going into the thrift stores and scanning for like 3 or 4 hours at a time. It was just horrible. So I was like, okay, this is better. So I started doing clearance and that actually ended up taking off where I stopped doing eBay. I was like, it's not really like worth it. I'm going to focus more on this, like essentially retail arbitrage is what I was doing before I realized I was doing it. And then from there, I probably like 12 months later, I decided, okay, I need to do something online because I was done being in the store for, again, 4 or 5 hours at a day. So I started doing online. I got into a Discord group, and then eventually I decided I was going to open my own Discord group so I could run it and share leads, because I was sharing leads in that group, and I was like, why don't I just do this, but like I'm the one who owns it all. So that's kind of how I started there. Fast forward like another year or two, and I decided OA sucks. I was like, I don't like it anymore. Whenever I lose joy out of something, I change, because I don't want to do something I hate because it feels like work again. And I'm like, I don't want to be back there. So now I've decided, I'm like, okay, I want to start my own brand, and I'm excited about that. So that's kind of where I'm currently at as far as selling online and all of that.
Is that the main thing you're focused on, is starting your own brand, or are you still doing the other stuff on the side?
Yeah, I'm still doing all the other stuff. So if you look at like my social media, I talk more about all the other stuff, because my brand stuff, it's like a slow moving process. Like day to day, nothing changes. So it's kind of hard to talk about that because nothing's really like ramping up at the moment. There's a lot of just like logistics going on in the background that I can't necessarily talk about. So I still run my Discord fully. So that's kind of what I do. Like, that's kind of like a daily thing I have to check. And then I do a lot of UGC. So like TikTok, AIP, those type of things day to day more than the like brand stuff.
How's the AIP and the TikTok shop stuff going? I know that's like the hot thing right now. We just had someone on yesterday that he was making like 10 to 20 grand a month with UGC. So that stuff's like fascinates me. How well is that going?
Yeah, it's cool. I'm not hitting those numbers. That would be cool. But it's going good. Like AIP has just kind of been steady. So like I hit like 1,600 last month, and then TikTok, I just hit my first like $100 week. Like I've only been doing that for maybe a month. So things are starting to like kind of pick up now. But it's fun. I mean, I like the TikTok a lot better because you can just pump out a lot of different types of videos instead of like AIP. It's like you're one and done, and you just hope Amazon puts you on the carousel, and you're just like, all right, that's it. I don't have another chance. Where TikTok, it's like, well, that video didn't perform well. Let me make another one a different way, and then like it could pick up traction. You just don't know. So that's a little bit more fun. And then I want to get more into like UGC, like them paying me for like the content and then me giving it to them. Because I think that's where a lot of like the high dollar stuff is, and like upfront money. You're not like just like betting on a viral video. You like know you're getting paid. So I'm going to try to focus on that and reach out to some brands like at the end of this month, like early next, and see if I can do some more of that.
Yeah, you kind of touched on, I kind of feel the same way about online arbitrage. Like it's not no longer fun really. And you kind of said OA sucks. Do you want to like go more into that as well? Kind of like, why do you think it sucks? And like, kind of
Well, it doesn't suck to like someone who enjoys it. So when I say it sucks, it's because the joy is taken out. Like the hunt of it, like isn't like thrilling for me anymore. So it became more of like work. And I get like it's your job. You should work, and you're not going to always like it. But I'm talking about like it was hard for me to even focus because I was hating like sourcing so much. And I was just like, and I was looking at like my P&L numbers and things like that, and my margins. And I just like kind of came to the realization that if I had my own brand, my margins would be way higher. I can control a lot of this, like, I was getting a lot of like counterfeit claims and like just a lot of bogus stuff, which Amazon's just been doing a lot of lately. And I'm just like, if I had my own brand, like this wouldn't be happening like at the rate it is. And also just everyone with Section 3s going on, being able to have something that's yours, they can't take away from you, is like really powerful. And I was never thinking I was going to have my own brand. Like I'm pretty sure I probably said, no, I'm not going to ever do that. That's not something I'm interested in. And so it's kind of just been like a progression over time of like learning like the beginning and being a beginner, and now getting to the point where I'm actually confident enough that I'm like, yeah, like why can't I do that? Maybe some of that is influenced by other people that have kind of started around me doing the same thing. So that just kind of feels like the next step. But yeah, as far as OA, it's not that it like sucks. It's a sucky model. It still works. It's just something I'm just not like thrilled about anymore. It's just not something that like gets me up in the morning, if that makes sense.
Yeah. What do you like think made you like, make that transition to a brand? Because I know that I feel like I hear a lot of people be like, I don't never want to do that. And I was the same way. Like 2 years ago on podcasts, I'm like, I never want to do something like that. Now it's like, that's kind of the only long-term thing I can see myself doing, especially because you have ownership over it, that type of thing. You said some people influence you. Speak a little bit more on that.
Yeah, probably like Joe. I don't know how to say his last name. Starts with a P,
Yeah.
Par something. Him, like Tona. I'm just saying, like a lot of these kind of people that I've been following for a long time, starting their own brand. And so I kind of already had this idea in my head, probably like over 6 months ago, but I didn't really do anything with it. I'm just like, oh, that'd be cool if one day I could make X. And so after kind of seeing other people make it, I think it just kind of gave me that like push of being like, why don't you just make this? And so that's when I kind of, way back then, that's when I transitioned to cash only, because I knew I didn't want to do this with debt. So I run my full business now with like only cash. So I don't I have to save up. So it kind of forced me to like slow down a lot and focus more on like the OA, like what works the best. And I trim off like all the fat essentially. So my numbers don't look as big, but I'm actually making more money than I did before because I'm not taking a lot of losses. I'm not having a lot of returns, things like that. And I'm actually able to save up like for what I'm actually looking for in the future. So there's a lot of like small stepping I'm doing and just kind of like a lot of waiting, knowing that, okay, in like hopefully less than 6 months, I have a product that I'm able to get out there.
It's like the hardest part of the brand, right? Just waiting. Or when you probably think it's going to get better. It just gets worse because then you run ads and then you're like, I have to wait for the ads to perform. And it's not like every day you can go make adjustments. You have to wait for data to pile up. That was one thing I struggled with when it was all that stuff. It's like, it's just such a waiting game. And OA and RA, that's like not a waiting game. You're instant all the time, especially like you said, you're passionate about it at the beginning. You're just going. That's so tough with a brand. Are you paying a coach or anything?
No, I'm just going solo right now. I do ask Joe and like Tona some like information, like, hey, what do you think this? Or like, I'll ask him some questions. But right now I don't feel like I need one because of where I'm at. Like there's just too much small stepping that I'm like, I don't really need anyone. I don't feel the need of it. When you watch someone else do on social media, not that it's like, oh, you can do it now all by yourself, but I've always been someone who Googles everything. So until like other than like AIP, I bought a course, things like that. Really because I got into a Discord group to help. So being in a community where other people are talking about it would interest me. But as far as like a course just for it, I mean, I know that stuff runs from like 3 to 10 grand. And I'm like, I think I could do it like until I hit a wall that I don't think I could climb over myself. I'm not going to hire someone else to help me.
Yeah, that makes sense. Are you going to go private label or are you thinking Shopify? Is there any like specific route you're going to go down there?
So the plan is to go to like have my own site, have it on Amazon, then have it on TikTok, no ban. And then Walmart, like test it on Walmart. And then like just see what it is from there. That alone will take me a long time to get them on all those platforms and all those listings anyways. So I'm not going to add anything else to that plate, but that's kind of like the main thing. I would say Amazon and TikTok is where I want it on first. And then like, if there's other sites, I also plan to have like host like companies. So like get on Fair and reach out to my specific category profession. It's hard to say what I'm going to make, but there's more opportunity than just online. Like I can work with like local like vendors too. So and like bulk.
If you slip up and say what it is, we can remove it afterwards. Don't worry.
I don't think I will. A lot of people have asked, and I've been pretty good. So,
do you plan on being the face of it? Like, is it going to be like your thing? Okay.
Mm-hmm. So, like, it'll be like a whole like kind of story of like how I came like to have it. So, the graphic designer I'm working with right now, like, he's really good. So he's creating it where like I don't have to rebrand for a while. I feel like a lot of people kind of throw something up there and they'll say I'll fix it later. I just want to get it out. But I'm kind of doing it like backwards where I'm taking more time to make it like right. So I don't have to rebrand for a while. It has like the full story. Like it's more of like the brand's telling a story. So I can connect with people faster and better and build that like brand name versus just being like, I'm just throwing the product on Amazon and that's the only place I'm selling it. I'm looking to actually like build this into like a legit brand with like lines of different products.
It's funny you didn't get a coach. This sounds like she just got our coach, John, except for she's doing it and we quit. That's the whole thing he was going through, is just like, what do you have us do? Like our interests and stuff like that.
And all this other stuff, right? Because that's one of the biggest pieces of advice that he gave us. He's like, you want to create something that you actually care about, or you're going to lose interest. And like, we just couldn't find the right product. And then other stuff happened in our businesses, and we're like, we can't do this right now.
Yeah, it kind of like, I don't know. For me, I feel like it kind of more like something that progressed and like kind of fell in my lap in a way where I was like, hey, like there's like this is missing from like the market, like the Amazon market. This doesn't have this. And so it's kind of been something I've just kind of thought about, and I'm like, I'm passionate about those things. I can give you like a little hint, like it's like holistic stuff. I'm very into like natural like ways to like heal yourself, and like just like I try to wear like 100% organic cotton. So like there's a lot of things like I like that type of like category. You could like put me in that niche. So it'll revolve around like those things. So it's stuff that like I live out every day. Products that like I will use like every day. So it's a lot easier. Like you said, you have to find something that interests you, because people believe you when you actually like believe in your product, versus just being like, hey, here's, XYZ, go buy it because, there's 10 other listings on Amazon that are pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
And you just run ads to like get that. To get that like market share essentially.
That's a wonderful segue, because we just did some like preliminary data from this form that we have that we're trying to get everybody to fill out for the pod. And surprisingly, like mindset and productivity and like kind of health all together is kind of what people like to hear the most on the pod. So we always talk business, but now we can kind of shift into this. I want to hear about this stuff because I know people that are into that a lot. I try my best. I'm not the best about it, but kind of to talk about that a little bit. How'd you start in the organic thing? I feel like a lot of women are into that stuff too. It's kind of like a big market.
It's like I actually saw this like reel, and it was kind of like, oh, like if your wife is like this when you say I need like Advil. And it's like I have like cramp bark, I have like, and they say all these like random like supplement things, and they're like, what, do you just have Advil? That's all I want. That's kind of me. So I started back probably when I was like 18. My mom started like going to like this small group with a nutritionist. And so she was really big on all these like natural things. And so my mom just kind of brought that home and started like implementing that in our own lives. So that's kind of when I started, I started like going to the gym more and like just like on that health track. So at first I was just kind of like a big gym rat. I'd be at the gym for like 4 hours a day, like, back before I had kids and I had nothing else I had responsibility for but myself. And then I just started like eating healthy, like, just the basics. And, you start following like Instagram and all those things. You start following people that are in that field. And then you kind of just slowly over time, like you kind of transition from thinking like pharmaceuticals and things like that is normal. And then you're like, wait, this isn't that normal. Like, why don't I use this? This is natural. It doesn't have all these like side effects or potential side effects. And so I kind of just progressed. It's kind of hard to say because I think it's just like year after year taking in different information. But it started with like my mom just kind of sharing it. But then I took it to the new, like that whole new level, just like year after year as I was on my own and just trying to figure things out for myself.
Actually, I lost my train of thought.
So it's not as much like, like protein supplements, like creatine. Like it's not like those I'm into. It's more of like, I'm not feeling good, so I'm going to go take like oxacillium, or like, if you know what that is, or like when it's girls' times of the month, like you take like cramp bark, like there's like things like that, which, like that's kind of just how I solve things like naturally. Oh, like I have like a pimple. Well, what did I eat wrong? Like I look up like what part of the face means what, like, oh, that's gut or that's sugar. Like specifically, I know when I get a pimple, I'm like, it's because I ate like all that sugar. Like I get a certain area where like I'll break out, and I know it's because of like if I eat a certain way or if I eat something that I know I'm not supposed to eat and I eat too much of it, I'll actually break out. So it's kind of like more just being like really self-aware of like your body, and like when you feel something, you're like, this isn't like normal for my day to day. Like what did I do differently? And then like check in with yourself instead of just being like, oh, my leg hurts or whatever, I'm gonna go take an ibuprofen. Like I actually try to get to the root cause to like avoid it from happening again. If that
And
makes sense.
do you, I know what I was going to ask. Do you rant about this to other people and they just like don't even listen to you? I'm sure you get so
No, I
frustrated.
don't try to like. I try not to do that. If somebody
Yeah.
asks, I will. But I try not to just like spit out information that like
Yeah.
nobody asked for.
Okay. Well, that's good because I feel like when I started getting into that stuff and like learning things like that, you want to try to help people, but you're
Mhm.
just like, they're not going to listen to you, but
I've had
you
people
already know.
where they ask and I tell them, and then they don't take any of the advice, and I see them just continue on. So it really has to be like that person has to care and like listen to your advice. So yeah, I've learned not to give advice unless they want to listen because it's just is a waste of breath.
Do you have a little like, do you have like some checkpoints of what you think are the most important things people can get started with when it's coming to like fixing their health like that? Or what are the biggest like threats that people face?
I would honestly say like what you eat, like what goes in your body is way more important than like what's on the outside. Mainly because I mean that just makes the most sense. So like for me, I would think the easiest way to start is to like go get some type of like blood test done, like a vitamin, mineral kind of test. So you can see what you're actually deficient in. Because a lot of people just will like take a multivitamin, but like majority of those vitamins you won't need. And so you're really just wasting money. So you want to figure out what are the actual like supplements I need, and then you can go and find like the best quality of stuff out there. That's again something really hard is that, which sucks, is that there's so much crap out there that like tailors to you, and you think like, oh, all of magnesium's the same, and it's not the same. And people just feed on that, right? Like when there's a market for something, people are going to jump in it and sell it to you because you want it, not because like it's actually like the right potency or it's created in the right way where, you know, because you have this, you need to also have this ingredient so your body's actually able to absorb it and it just doesn't get like peed out. Like they don't like some brands, I won't say all of them, but like some brands don't care if it works for you. They just want you to continue to buy it. And so I would just say start with what are you actually deficient in, find those products, find like the best quality of them. And you can find them like if you join like Facebook groups, like if you type in like crunchy is like a term that people use. It means you're really like holistic. And you just say, hey, what are like the best quality of supplements? You could, there's probably like crunchy guys of say Tennessee. Like, and there's probably a Facebook group on it. I'm in a bunch of crunchy groups, and that's where I ask information if I don't know. Because it's kind of collective of like everybody's thoughts and experiences, and like you're able to like I guess captivate that or like take advantage of that and learn from like others. So I hope that's like a good start. I hope that made sense because
Yeah, it's
like
great.
That's awesome. How do you balance all this? Do you have a team? Like, I feel like you have a lot of different stuff, or is it just you?
it's just me. So I have a team in the sense of like my Discord. Like, so I do have like 4 VAs right now. So they all help me with my Discord. And then I have James, who you may know, James Oskam, I think is his last name. He does like he's in my Discord, but he also helps Cody and stuff. He's Red Olive Industry.
Oh, yeah.
So he helps me actually with my VA. So he'll go through the VA leads every day, mark them red, you know, mark them all, and then he'll like put that number in the track sheet, and then I just only have to look at that track sheet every week and like go over and look at their leads. So that's a huge help. So I do have help in my Discord. And then as far as like my brand, it's really just me doing it, messaging people, and then TikTok. I mean, AIP, that's all me. So no, it's just pretty much all me. Other than my Discord, I have a lot of help in my Discord. But other than that, it's pretty much just me running it when I can, because I don't get like blocks of hours in a day. Like that's amazing. If I get like a 2-hour block in a day, like that's a good day. A lot of times I'm like 30 minutes here, like 10 minutes here, an hour here maybe, and like so it's tough sometimes. Definitely, I've been struggling with that actually some lately. I just feel like I don't have enough time like for me and like the business. But at the same time, you kind of have to like work with what you have. And I could complain about it and be like, well, I don't have time for anything. But like instead, I find those pockets of time to like do those things, so I still get things done. It just may not be in like a smooth, like straight line the way I would like to have it.
That's
What else you got, John? Any health stuff? I'm ready to get into this health stuff, man.
Yeah,
I'm trying to fix my life here. I'm fatigued in the morning. What do you think about that? I'm fatigued most of the time, living off caffeine. What do I do there?
It actually means your mitochondria is not working correctly. Your energy, like if you're like tired in the morning, it has to do with like your mitochondria, like your energy levels. it's like your energy production is not where it should be. It's essentially like your body is just trying to keep you alive and like the normal tasks or day-to-day tasks where it doesn't have any energy to do anything else. So like you may not see like gains in the gym. You may, things like, and like focus, because your body is just trying to make sure that it can move throughout the day. And like, it's just trying to maintain like your current state. So if you're finding like your fatigue in the morning, it has to do with like your energy. Think of it. It's like, because I have similar issues. So that's why I actually know about that. It's pretty much that your energy, like it just doesn't have time for anything else. It's just trying to like essentially keep you alive and keep you just doing your day-to-day tasks. So I have to actually look. I have, because I actually had joined like a group about this a while back. And they said what to do. And I can actually send that to you. I'll find that and I'll send it to you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, I have a lot of like midday crashes too, and I've looked up so much stuff, and I'm coming more and more to the conclusion it might be my gut, like bad gut health, because when you have like a bad gut to start with, and you do all these stimulants and that type of stuff to like try to keep yourself up, it just ruins your gut altogether. So that's kind of where I'm thinking, because I got tested for sleep apnea, got a CPAP, that type of stuff, but it's like still having these big energy dump offs. So I'm like, there's got to be some natural way to like heal this. I feel like that's the biggest part.
But yeah, I'll send you that information and then you can look into it to kind of help you. But yeah, I was actually getting the same thing because I was drinking a lot of like caffeine in the last like couple months. And I actually started where I never had this, where I was drinking caffeine and all of a sudden I would have like anxiety, like maybe an hour after. And I was like taking deep breaths. I'm like, why am I feeling like this? Like, I don't feel like this ever. And I realized it was the caffeine. Like it was giving me like energy, but it was also giving me like it was making me super overwhelmed. I'm like, this is weird. Like this has never happened to me before. So it definitely affects you more like long term, and especially as like we get older, like we start to notice those things that we kind of just like put off that weren't like that serious. And it's like, oh crap, like now I'm like 29. So like things are starting to hit me more. It's like, it kind of sucks, but it kind of shows you that like it's already kind of been there. It's just now like surfacing, because your body, like it's not going to happen like in one day. Your body, like it builds up and it keeps trying to like heal you, but it can only heal you for so long until it's like, I can't hold it any longer. And so then it like essentially lets go. And now all of a sudden you see these side effects because your body just like can't handle that much stress you're putting on it like anymore. So it essentially like breaks in a way.
What do you got wrong with you, John? See if she can help you too. John drinks a lot of beer. That's about it. He drinks a lot of IPAs.
Yeah, the IPAs. Actually, I've kind of like strayed away from the IPAs lately, and it's more wine.
That's better.
Well, yeah, I think that's a little better. I don't know.
I'm trying to think of like little health issues. Like I just love talking about this stuff. All we do is talk business all day. So I'm like, what kind of health stuff can we get into here?
Yeah, there's some like good brands. So I'll share with both of you guys if you're interested. But yeah, the group I was in, it was pretty good. So they're like the one girl is like a PhD, and then the other one is like some type of nutritionist and like physical trainer. And so they're sisters, and they tell you like the best like brands, like they work with it. They have their own farm where they like feed like their chickens, like all like organ meats and stuff. Like it's very crunchy over in that group. But I love it because that's the stuff you need. Essentially, crunchy is like, hey, let's just like use what the earth gave us and get away from words that we can't even pronounce on a bottle. And that's what like that stuff is like. And it was only like $50 a month. Like it was super cheap to be able to get into something like that, and to be able to actually have somebody where you can like bounce ideas off of like that is like really powerful and totally worth it. So
I don't know. I'm sure I follow you on Instagram, but I'm never on Instagram. Is your content, do you base it around that kind of stuff, or is it business style stuff?
No, so it's all business. So I had a personal account and it was pretty much like dead, my personal account. Like I just stopped using it. And I actually just decided I kind of want to start posting again, but making the holistic stuff over there. Because the thing is, like, my already Instagram is like filled with like Amazon, like it has Walmart, it has AIP, it has UGC. It's like if I start throwing in like personal, holistic, random crap in there, people are gonna be like, "What the freak is this girl even talking about?" Like it's too much. And so people get overwhelmed by that, and they won't know like, should I follow her? Like I don't understand like what I'm looking at. So I actually just created like I went back to my personal one, and I'm like I essentially branded it. So I'll start posting on there more like holistic stuff, which I actually hope to use for like UGC as well. Once like I kind of get that going.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, keeping it separate. That's which a lot of people say you shouldn't, combine it all. People are going to like you for you, but it is tough to, mix the content around. It's like, so me and John are like talking about right now is we've been talking about Amazon for like 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have this pod and we're like, we don't even know what direction to like talk to or whatever. Like, what do people want to hear? Cause you don't know. Yeah. Is your audience Amazon focused or they just like you for you? It's kind of a complicated situation.
Yeah, like you have to figure out like, okay, if we do this one, oh, this could be really cool and you really like the interview, but then people are like, well, that's not why I listen to you. So they skip that podcast and they don't listen to it. So yeah, it's really hard. Like when you want to do everything, they will tell you to like niche down and only focus on the one, and you'll essentially get more followers because of that. Because they're just, you know that they're gonna watch it because it has to do with Amazon first, whatever.
Yep.
It's
sure.
hard.
Yeah, we're going to learn that the hard way. Like we've had some huge wholesalers on that do massive numbers, and those episodes are always no one cares about it. Like it's pretty much, I guess, OA. In the survey we're doing, like a lot of people said they want like a mix now. Like, Amazon is not a great opportunity or as good of an opportunity. So it's like, what other things what can we do? Like, what other people can we bring on? So I think that will be like more of the focus. Have you ever thought about, do you think you'll always do your Amazon Discord? Or like, could you see doing like a holistic Discord? If you're still listening to the podcast at this point, you are into it and a fan, and we really appreciate that. If you could do us a solid and like, subscribe, and do all that stuff, it really helps the podcast grow. And secondly, if you could tag us on Instagram, just take a picture of what part you are at the podcast. If you like it, tell us what you think about it. Tag me at Side Hustle Experiment, and I will definitely share it. Now let's get back to the podcast.
That would be like way, way down the line if I were to do that. So I don't like to like put something on a plate that doesn't necessarily have to be there yet. And even though I'm like, oh, that sounds awesome and really fun, like right now it doesn't make any sense like to do it. Like I don't see it. Now, if later down the line I have my brand and all these different like things that I have within it, then I'm like, okay, it would make sense to have some type of community to share how do you use these products. Why are they beneficial, X, Y, Z, and help people decide, hey, this is what you should use based on when you're telling me. That would be something way down the line, and because that's going to take a lot of time. But eventually, yes, like I could see my Discord group has been going since I think like 2022. So I've had it for like over 2 years now. And there's been some times where I think like, should I like drop this? Because obviously whenever you're keep doing new things, it's taking away, whenever you're doing something daily, it's taking away from doing other things that could be like growing your business and like growing in general. So I've thought about before, I'm like, is this still worth it? Like to run this Discord? And there's been days where I'm like, I think I should close it down. And then there's days I'm like, no, like I like it. I want to keep it. And so I'm sure at some point I will drop it or like sell it. I don't know. Like, I don't know because it kind of runs itself in a way where I don't want to like hurt all my members. Like there's some members that have been in there for like the whole 2 years. Like they've been with me since the beginning. And so it's nice to have those like connections. So I don't know. I guess my question is, I don't know. Right now I'm keeping it. I just did like a whole rebranding with it not too long ago. And I think just because I don't have to put too much effort into it with like the leads, essentially, that it's not hurting anyone being there. It's only helping. So
you don't have plans to like grow it or anything though?
No, not at this time. I mean, I've thought about if I start doing my brand and I want to create like a private label section of it, like I could, but I just don't know like if I want to, because I don't want to create something just because I'm like, oh, I can make more money with this. Like when I created that, it was like, I wanted to bring the members in the other Discord and the people who really valued my work to me, and I could control what they see and like to help them essentially. And so I don't want to do like create something like that just for the money, because then it kind of sucks and it's not something I'd want to do. Because I started it because I wanted to help people. So if I feel like, okay, I don't feel like this is my passion anymore and this is kind of just there, then I would probably like close it and I don't know, something like that.
What you got, John?
Yeah, it's always hard. Like I actually recently shut down one of my communities and it was just really, it's like it was a really hard thing. It was like kind of stressing me out more as I'm shifting focus to like AIP and UGC. And it's like, feel like for Amazon, like you really need to have an edge these days. And like not having my finger on most of the pull on like a really good pull. So I was like, I don't think this is worth it anymore for me. And it was hard because like when I made the announcement, like it wasn't like there was a lead up to it. It was just like, yeah, like, there's only gonna be one more call. And it was hurtful because a lot of people are like, oh man, we love this thing. And it's like, did I make the right decision? Um, but yeah, it's just one of those things that you have to like decide. How do you decide what to take on then? Because you kind of said like, oh, I don't want to do the holistic thing. So like, how do you almost evaluate whether to take on an opportunity or not?
Well, the holistic thing right now probably would not make me like any money. So like I have to be able to have an income to do these things, right? So like right now my focus is like creating this brand. Like the holistic stuff is really cool, but like that is any type of group is time consuming. A lot of people think that like, oh, they're like, oh look, if they can get 100 members, they're gonna off $100 each, they're gonna make $10,000. Look, that's how they're making all their money. I actually had someone say that to me. Someone who like I had helped numerous times actually, and it hurt to hear them say that. I'm like, what? And I was like, dude, I don't make 10 grand off my Discord. Like, I'll tell you that right now. Like, that's not how that works because I have to pay all those people and I provide like essentially more leads than most people do. And I pay my VAs well. Like, I don't want to just pay them like $400 a month. Like, that's like crappy. So like last month, I only made like $240 on my Discord because I had all my bonuses that I sent out for their like end of year. So like essentially I like reinvest. I'm like, I even thought to myself, I was like, I feel like my Discord sometimes is like a nonprofit. I just like reinvest back into it. I was like, I could run it like that, but like that's not like the main purpose of the Discord. Like I don't make a bunch of money on it. Usually like I'm like full transparency. Like I make anywhere from like probably 1,500 to 2,000 a month on it. So like it's nice. Like I can use that money to help build my brand, but it's not like life-changing money in a way. You know what I mean? That's essentially what I would make if I was working full-time at a grocery store. So yes, it like covers that income so I don't have to go back to work, but it's not like I'm making 10 grand like some people think. And it's a lot of work. Which is why I understand why you shut yours down. It sucks because you think like I just built this up and you feel like, did I fail? Like, should I have never started it? So it's a hard thing to like close something down and like admit that, especially if it's like in the public, everyone sees it and you're like, gosh, everyone's gonna think like I sucked, I didn't make it good enough, I wasn't good enough like to do this. And that's not necessarily like, you kind of have to tell yourself that's not why you closed it down. It was because there's better opportunities for you and this is taking too much of your time. And it served its purpose. Like you helped a lot of people probably within that time that wouldn't have had that help otherwise. So that's kind of how you have to see it. And a group is like, if you're not interested in the group, like in the sense of passionate about what you're talking about, it just kind of dies off because like the main creator is just like, you've moved on and that's just kind of life. Like, you're going to move on from thing to thing. So.
Yeah, I think it's really important, like what you're talking about too, because like a lot of people don't realize that, right? Like, okay, you have 100 members times $100, 10, but like they don't realize like how much one like overhead you have, like because obviously you have 4 people doing it, you have someone else helping out, and then it's just like two, it's wears on you mentally, and it's like you're like if you have 100 members and like maybe you log in the morning and like no one said anything, you're like.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, like is this dead? Like do people not like this? And like that's kind of like what I was having going on. And like and when I was like I'm closing it, everyone's like, no, like we just listen to the calls, or like, not everyone could go to the calls, or there's other stuff going on. And it's hard to see that. And as like we talk about it all the time, like we used to coach like high ticket, low ticket, and it's like you give someone everything they need and like go above and beyond and they fail, that's on them, but like it still hurts you. And I was like, I just need to like kind of move on from this and just really focus my attention on like AIP and UGC.
Yeah.
People don't understand too, I think, that like the group's recurring revenue is like the big hot buzzword. It's like if you make $100 off a person in a year, the max you can even make is $1,200. And they're like, well, everybody just assumes too that people are going to stay in a year. You have churn like constantly. I'm sure like about this, and John knew about this too. Like if you have people that are having to constantly pay you, they have to have constant problems, and you have to have constant solutions to the problems.
Yeah,
So like
right.
you said, you're like reinvesting all the time to like fix these people's problems. But if people stop reinvesting or like problems, everybody kind of makes it a little bit. It just gets really difficult. So I think people think that's like way easier than what it is. I'm not surprised if I came to you like, you're just making all this money. It's like you have no idea how difficult that stuff is, because most of those groups die within like 5-6 months. Like it's so hard to keep on running because
It's you have to like you essentially have to have like a platform to like share your group on. So that's what I realized. It's like, oh, like I I my retention's pretty good, but there's times where like people just leave. Like they're just they're the same thing as me. They're growing, they're doing new things, so it's not relevant for them anymore. Um, and so if you're not bringing in new people, even though like people are leaving like slowly, eventually you're going to hit like a low if you don't get more people in. So you have to also like continuously advertise. And I've been really bad at that. And my husband's always like, you need to advertise for your Discord. Like, why haven't you done that? I'm like, oh, I haven't done it in 2 weeks. Like, it's just like, I forget. And like, I also don't want to be like annoying. Like, all I talk about is the Discord. But like, I saw something that was like, and like people have to see something like 12 times before they buy it. And it's like, you may think you're being annoying, but honestly, like that person that was like, oh, that's interesting. Like maybe I'd be interested in that, but they don't click it. The next time you post it, they're like, the more they see it, they're like, okay, I've seen this all the time. I should just go ahead and give it a shot. So you have to like advertise for a lot, which again takes a lot of time making those posts and things like that. So yeah, there's a lot of time and energy, but I mean, yeah, we're going 2+ years strong. I'm not going to cancel it anytime soon. But when I get to that time, when I do, I don't know what that would look like, but I could just open it up, you know what I mean? And just let it be a free thing, and someone takes, people can just still use those guides and stuff. I'm not sure, but I try to take it one step at a time, like presently it's going well. And we'll see what happens.
how do you stay so organized with all this stuff? Because I've always been a person that struggles with like a little basket of income here, a little basket of income here. Both of you guys kind of do this. You do this too, John. Like, maybe a question for each of you, I guess. Then, like, how do you kind of like keep track of all this money? It's like, well, I'm making $1,000 here, $1,000 here. Like, do you try to organize it in some way, spreadsheets or whatever, or do you just like pay attention?
I don't do like really any spreadsheets other than, I mean, my AIP. I do like my monthly recap kind of a thing. But that is what a bookkeeper is for. And that is why I pay $549 a month for someone to bookkeep all of my stuff through all my platforms. So I get that nice report at the end of each month. And then I just go through it and I see, okay, what was profitable here? What was here? Why wasn't this as much as I thought it was going to be? And then like reevaluate for the next month. So that's what I do. I have a bookkeeper. Oh my gosh. If I didn't have a bookkeeper, my life, I would feel very disorganized. And then as far as like my day-to-day tasks, I just literally put like it on my Google Calendar. I'll just type in, like, if I have to do something today, I'll just type it in as like, this is what I'm going to do today, or like, oh, maybe this Thursday. And then I'm very flexible with it, because sometimes I can do those longer tasks, and then other days I have to push it to the next day because it's just not possible that day. So I have to be very flexible in my schedule.
Makes sense.
I'm the same way. I have a bookkeeper, and then I just kind of have like my pulse. I just feel like I have like a pulse. Like, I don't know, just check like your bank account every other day. Like look at expenses, look at credit cards and stuff like that. That's kind of how I do it. And then it's like hard sometimes, like because now I'm getting a lot of brand deals. I'm probably not the best at that, because like you're getting a lot of like PayPal payments, and it's just like. So I do have a spreadsheet for that, and it's just like, all right, this person paid, this person didn't pay, and trying to keep track of that. But now it's like getting to like 20 or 30 a month. Like I need a better system for that, where it's just like, I don't know what it is. Like I should probably be saving like the PayPal transaction report. It's mainly built on like trust. Like, all right, like this person did pay me, this person didn't. Like, how much do you want to like haunt this person, I guess? So yeah, it definitely gets hard, but that's why I'm kind of leaning more towards like UGC, where it's like, you have like maybe a handful of people you're working with, and that will be easier to track. But
If
yeah,
you
it's definitely challenging.
I just use like a spreadsheet for that. So if they like contact me and then they confirm my rate and they say, okay, I'm going to send you the product, I input it in that spreadsheet. And I just say like, I can send you like the template I use, but essentially it's just like, how did they reach out to you? And I like put that email in if it's their email. And then I like link the product and the ASIN, the amount we agreed on, and then like the payment type. And then whenever they pay me, I just put the date along with how much they paid me. So that way I could easily find it. Because PayPal, don't get me started on PayPal and the way that they label things. Like you can't tell. So I always like cash it out individually. So if I had like 3 people at 50, I will cash it out $50 to my bank account, 50-50. So my bookkeeper, they can see, okay, each of those is for 3 different people because they need the names of all those people and stuff. That makes it a lot easier.
I'm going to change it up to that because right now I have PayPal. It just automatically sends the money like every day if there's money in there. And like, it's funny too, because I have a spreadsheet too. Like I use SellerAmp to kind of like put everything down. And like, that's a huge help like for a lot of the stuff. So I have like the product, the link, all that kind of stuff. And I always grab their like Instagram account. Like this way it's in there, or email address or whatever it is. Cause there's like a lot of times where it's like, who sent this? Like, I don't even know like where this is from or whatever. So that's always helpful. But yeah, when you get all these PayPal transactions, it's all in like Chinese basically. Like it doesn't say any words.
I'm like, oh, who is this from? Yeah, I have to like figure it out.
And sometimes they don't even tell you. Like there was like a time, I think it was like the last week of December, like I got paid out like by this one company, and it was just like $450 just like came into the PayPal account. I'm like, what is this? Like who sent this? And then the next day, like someone sent 60, and it wasn't like, I was like, I don't know like who this stuff is. And then I don't know, I think in the new year, like, hey, we sent you payment for like December. It was like kind of deals that were, they sent multiple products, and instead of paying for each one individually, which they usually do, they just did like a lump sum. I thought my PayPal account was like getting hacked or something, but it just turned out they were just like sending what they owed me.
Yeah, it gets confusing. I've definitely done that myself where I'm like, who's paying me? I don't know what this is from. And that's really bad when you don't know.
Do you feel like that you, in the future, you want like one stream that, you know, surpasses the other ones, or you think that you'll just keep going down the route of like a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here?
I honestly hate it. Like my husband's even like, why don't you just focus all in on like AIP? Like, why do you do this other stuff? Because then he's like, you can't focus on it, and then you're like being pulled in all these directions. And I'm definitely an advocate of like, it's better to like go all in and become a master of something than to be like just good at these other things. But it's kind of like you kind of have to test what you like. So when some like TikTok, I didn't jump on. Like somebody had told me like last year in March, hey, you should get on this. Like you helped me a lot with Amazon, but like I've made like a stupid amount of money on this app. And I'm just like, I was like, it's just not right. Like I just started AIP, and I'm like, I can't take on something else. This is too much for me. But then this past like December, I was like, okay, like I'm actually finally ready to add something on, because now I've kind of like, the other stuff is already kind of rolling at a certain pace. I feel like I can like throw another ball in and like juggle that as well without it taking too much time away from the other stuff, because now I get how this all works. So I've kind of like thrown things in once I've essentially like mastered my flow of it. But I want my brand to be like my number one income. So like my goal is to have my brand be like my main source of income. And eventually have UGC, like the goal is I really don't have to do any of that. I want my brand to be like my main income and my main focus. Right now I'm leveraging it to like fund my private label and like my brand. But I'm not opposed to, once that is like taking off, to like drop those things. Now I may not drop it all together. Maybe I'll work with them, but like when you have your own brand, you want to promote that, right? Like I want to put all my efforts into like making like me money and my products sell, not somebody else's products sell. Like that's kind of like, you know what I mean? Like that just doesn't make sense. Why would I put so much effort into someone else's product? So that's my main goal. And like my long-term goal is to have it where like my husband can quit his job. So like now that may not happen. I put that for this year's goal, but like that's a really like big goal to hit first year of having a brand. So maybe next year realistically, but that's like the goal I've been working towards probably for like about a year now, is being able to have my husband like be home with us. So,
well, this is some decent advice here. I wish somebody would have told me with this kind of stuff like that. You may think that like, oh, it's not realistic this year, or maybe you think, well, it'll definitely happen next year. Usually that stuff, you'll have something that takes off really big, especially where you're doing your own thing, and you'll have an influx of stuff that allows that stuff to happen. It could happen like way faster than you think, or slower.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it could be slower too. But that's one thing that like, I don't know, keep your expectations like high, because you never know when you could put out one piece of content, it gets 2 million views, you sell out, and there you go. Like that's all you need. You just made like 30K in like a little batch. So
Yeah.
that
No,
stuff can happen really fast.
there's definitely like certain steps I have to hit because like obviously like if he were to leave, like he couldn't go back. So it's not something like to tread lightly. So the goal is that like I would supplement his income for a minimum of 6 months because we know, it's not just an influx of money that one time. We have to make sure we can actually keep continually make it. So that would be like, that's why I say maybe next year because it just depends on when I can get this product launched and all this stuff. Because there's just some extra like testing and stuff done that like not everybody has to get done on their stuff. So, yeah, but that's the goal. I mean, I have it on my main goal this year is to have where he can leave, but it means by the 6th month, I have to be making that money every month. So we'll see. I'm not saying it can't happen, but that's definitely a big goal of mine, which is cool because I started out just being like, I want to be able to stay home with like my kids and be able to like raise them. And so now it's like gotten to the point where I'm like, well, now I want my husband to be home so he can actually be with his family and not be gone 50, 60 hours a week. So it's like, it's cool. And you have to kind of have some type of why like that, some type of goal, or you just like, you'll be doing the same thing every single year because you're just comfortable. There's nothing like pushing you to like hit something new and like hit your new ceiling. So.
Yeah, that's good. Talk a bit more about that. I feel like that's maybe a lot of, reasons people struggle with like finding what to do or sticking with stuff, like the why, the importance of that. How'd you learn that overall?
I feel like it's just through like experience. So I've always been someone who like wanted to do some type of job where like I was in control of it. Like I did a lot of like the Shipt shopper, like Instacart, like Uber. Like I always liked to be in control of my hours and do as much or as little as I wanted. Like I even had a job where I could like make my own hours at this work. I'd go in, do some work and leave. Nobody would mess with me. I could just do whatever I needed to do. So I've always liked that type of stuff. And so I feel like Amazon and like eBay kind of like gatewayed me to be like, hey, like you can have your own business. Like I never thought, if you told me like 10 years ago, hey, you're going to be building your own brand, I'd be like, of what? Like, what are you talking about? So it's definitely something you just have to learn. Like I always tell someone like, you have to find what you like to do. So like people ask me, what should I get started with? Should I sell on Amazon? Do you think I should do AIP? And I'm like, well, what do you like enjoy? What's interests you like the most? Because it doesn't matter like if you want to do Amazon. If you hate doing Amazon, you're not going to stick with it. And like, this isn't for you. Like, it doesn't matter how much money you want to make. That's not going to get you anywhere. So I feel like it's kind of like a progression. I feel like people should try out all these different things and try it out for a couple months. And if you enjoy it, continue at it. Because I always give something 2 months to work, as long as I enjoy it. So like with TikTok, I wasn't seeing like anything for a whole month. And I was going live for like an hour, no sales. My husband's like, why do you keep wasting your time? You could be hanging out with us and you're just wasting your time on TikTok. I'm like, no, babe, give it 2 months, 2 months. And now like, what are we, like a month and a half in, and now I have my first like kind of viral-ish like video, and I've made like $100 like just in the last like 7 days, where before I was making like zero. So, things are like starting to pick up now, and I'm like, see, like you just have to give it some time. But you kind of just have to find your interest. Like you said, like if you're going to make a brand, you need to be interested in it, or it's not going to be long-term, and it'll probably just fizzle out, or it'll just kind of be like this constant thing in the background that you kind of forget about.
I feel like that's like the most generic advice that everybody always says. And when, like early on, you're just like, they're like, whatever, it's the same thing. But and then you learn more and more. And you're like, this isn't just generic advice. Like if you don't follow this advice, you're like never going to make anything work, which is like, it's like the cliches always. It's like, yeah, whatever. But then you learn, yeah, if you're not interested, you're probably going to quit. No matter how much like success or whatever. I think people see stuff on the internet and they're like, well, that guy's having success. That's just what I'm going to do. It's like,
and you have to take it slow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
it's like
people who, sorry, finish your thought.
No, go ahead. That was it.
I was going to say people who like just want to make money like right away. I'm like, that's the wrong, like, yes, you want to make money, but that's like the wrong reason to start. Like I never started selling because I was like, I just want to make a bunch of money. I was like, I had a goal in mind. I need to make at least $500 a week so I can leave this job that like I don't want to be in anymore. So I feel like a lot of times new people come in and they're just like, well, I just want to make a lot of money. But then they get mad when they get like a return. Like people who like, they get one return out of like 20 products. And they're like, look, this person said it never arrived. Or like, they said it was broken. I'm pissed at this person. I'm like, dude, haven't you returned something because it got broken? That's not what I'm talking about though. It's like, dude, like let it go. You can't get that upset over really small stuff. Like that is business. So like there's sometimes I see that like personality come out in some people that I'm like, I don't know if you're cut out for this, because if you get upset about this one thing, imagine when like down the line you just lost like $3,000, because XYZ or whatever. Like there was a time I lost $12,000 on a product that I went way too deep on, and it like bit me in the butt, and I knew it was gonna happen, but like FOMO like hit me hard that night. So that was rough. But like I wasn't like upset. I didn't cry over it. I was like, oh shoot, like I just lost 12K, like that's really bad. But I was like, all right, I gotta keep going. Like, what did I do wrong? I'm not gonna do this again. Let's keep going. And a lot of people that would have like crushed them and they would have stopped. So you have to just like, I don't know, it's hard to describe. Like it's just, you just keep going. And you just don't lose that passion and that focus for it. And I think that's like a true entrepreneur like spirit. And a lot of people do Amazon and they may not have that. And that's why eventually they like fizzle out, because it's not in their like, I don't want to say their blood or DNA, because essentially anyone can do it. But you really have to have like a certain mindset for this stuff so it doesn't get you down, and you kind of have to think like a business versus thinking as just like a consumer. And I think a lot of people think like a consumer.
Interesting. Can you go more into the 12K? Like you lost it?
Stanley Cups.
Oh, okay.
I knew that was what it was going to be. I don't know why. I just had a feeling it was going to be
before on other like people who've asked me, but yeah, it was Stanley Cups. Late at night, 2 a.m. in the morning. Should I do this? Should I buy this? And I'm like, no. Like if you lose, like this is gonna be bad. But I'm like, if you win though, and like that was the very first time I looked for a reason to buy a product, and after that happened, I started looking for reasons not to buy a product, so that would never happen again. Because if you pretend something is really good in your mind, you can convince yourself to buy it, and you can say all the reasons you should buy it. But if you can find reasons not to buy it, don't buy it. So that's how I actually source. Like now, I look at why shouldn't I buy this, and if I have enough of those, I won't buy it.
Well, what was I'm sure this is probably close to the story where you speculate and then it would go out of stock, so you bought a ton of them, and it didn't go out of stock.
No.
And you had to sell them all for a $15, $20 loss.
Yeah, I was like taking negative. It was big hit. It was bad. I'm honestly surprised. I'm surprised like I was able to pay off those credit cards. Honestly, I don't know how. Like, because I was kind of running blind during that time too. I don't think I had a CPA or accountant yet. So like I was just playing with the money I had. No idea. Yeah, that was rough.
What was the colorway? Do you remember?
It was like 3, maybe cream, an orange, and something else. I can't remember the third one.
Yeah, so I don't know what time period this was, but I don't know how much I've talked about this either, but I'm out of Amazon, so I don't care. But so back in like whenever the Stanleys really were hitting, I learned this pattern that was happening with these colors, because they were retiring the colors like out of stock, like a lot. And you could kind of see when that was happening. So I would go buy a bunch of these on a restock. I got 200 at a time that I knew for a fact like weren't going to restock. Nowadays, I don't think it's really like that. Yeah. But there were like these colors that I would buy 200 of these $40 ones, and they would take 2 weeks to ship. By the time they got here, they were $110 on Amazon, and I was the only seller, and they were like flying through. And I felt like no one else was seeing this. I had all the alerts on and everything. I think I made 57 grand on Stanley Cups profit in like a 3-month period. Just little stuff like that. But then eventually what happened was I lost a bunch doing what you did. It's just speculating that to happen.
So many people like hopped on. It started like you have to know when to get out. And I kind of caught it early too. There was a lot of money I made, and I think maybe that's why it didn't hurt as bad because I had made so much money. But it also makes you realize, crap, I just essentially just washed out all of that work I just did. And so that sucks. But Amazon still made their money. So I always think that I'm like, man, we just took a wash. But I'm like, well, at least Amazon made some money because they're the ones who really profited off of that, because I made zero.
Well, one thing you spoke on earlier about like what it takes to make it or whatever. This is like one question I hope that I can like answer in this podcast if I do all these episodes. It's like, what do you think is the key trait to someone making it? I know you're like, I can't put a word on it. Like I wonder, resourcefulness is one. I know you said that you Google stuff all the time. I feel like being resourceful, and like a lot of these things you probably don't see as problems. You just see as like, I just got to find the answer to it. That's one thing that might be the biggest one, but I always just look at people, I'm like, how can they just like not make it, or how can they just not figure out something? I don't know what it is. And a lot of people say consistency. There's like so many answers. So if you had to tie it down to one, what's your like, this is the number one trait I see of you and then everybody you teach, that kind of thing?
I would probably say like not trying to kind of going like not trying to figure out something yourself. So a lot of people, like, I don't mind when people ask me questions. Like, I'm always happy to help, like on my social medias and stuff when someone asks questions. But I feel like when somebody says like it's kind of hard. It's hard to pinpoint, like you said. I'd have to really I probably have to ask like ChatGPT, what does this mean? But like essentially when they want you to feed them all the answers. So in the way, and very simple stuff, like say if they want to get into AIP and they're like, hey, I see you talk about AIP, what is it? Well, you could have just literally went to Google and typed AIP, what is it? But you came to me, and like I get sometimes I have a story, and so it's something new, right? And so they comment, that's different. But then they'll be like, oh, okay, like how does it work? And it's like they want you to like feed them all the answers instead of just like going to YouTube or like going to Google and saying, hey, what is Amazon influencer? How does that work? Or like they look for other people to tell them answers instead of them going out and finding it. Like kind of like what I'm doing for my private label. Like I could go bug Tona and Joe for all these like small questions. But until I get stuck and I cannot find that myself, like Google's not popping up, nothing. I can't find any information. That is when I go to somebody. Like I was looking for like UGC rates. And I literally, you can't find anything of like, how much should you base your UGC off of? Like, it's hard to find that answer. You can't I even asked ChatGPT and they were like way too high. And it didn't even understand. I probably had to give it more prompts, but that's probably my fault. But because not a lot of people talk about it, they don't want to tell you how much they're making. They don't want to tell you their amount in their analytics. And it's something that people gatekeep a lot. So I searched. And so when I couldn't find it, and then I went to someone I know who's doing it and said, hey, can you please help me with this? Like, this is my like XYZ, like, what do you think my rate should be? And then he told me, okay, I think it would be this. And so that helped me because I went to him in a time of, I could not find the answer. Now the people who would have just like went to whoever that, the same person said, hey, what should my rate be? And they're like, well, what do you do? Well, I don't know. Like, can you just like figure it out? Here's my profiles. And it's like, you want me to do all that work for you. So I think like just taking those two different like approaches. One is somebody who's like trying to do it on their own, but they're asking, they're relying on their friends for that help when they need it, versus someone who's like being dependent on their friend to like give them the answers they need. So I guess it's like that independent, and being able to like make those choices like for yourself. I hope that like came across the way I needed to, because it is confusing to like kind of get into the mind of somebody like that. But I think that would be the biggest thing. People who are asking very simple questions, that's like, you could just Google this. Like you don't, and I think it's like dependence. You need to like become independent and only be dependent when necessary.
Yep.
That's what I said. Because you end up taking too much from people, and those people end up like you kind of start using them, and you're wasting their time, and you're not being respectful for that other person because it takes time for them to reply to you, even if it's only a sentence. If you're talking to them all day, you're probably going to start to annoy them, and they're going to be like, why can't he go look this up? Why is he using me in this way? And it's not like an equal beneficiary. I don't know what that word calls, but it's not equal. Like if I just asked John, hey, like, tell me about podcasting. Well, what do you do about this? What do you do about this? What do you do about this? You'd be like, dude, like you could just look at this YouTube video, send me the link. You know what I mean? Like you'd probably just send me a link saying, hey, check this out. And so I think it's that like balance.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think I have a friend, he's a really good friend of mine. He'll just ask me questions like that all the time. I'm like, bro, Google. Like I just send him google.com constantly because I'm like, this question could just go into Google. You don't have to ask me. You're like pissing me off. Like just go Google the question.
Something that's funny is that I actually got like my mom into selling on Amazon stuff. And so she'll use me as that like person. And so I've actually told her, I'm like, Mom, just Google it. You don't have to ask me that. And she's like, why don't you ever want to help me? And I'm like, Mom, I will help you. But like, I want you to try on your own first and then come to me when you can't find the answer. So that's actually funny because that's like part of our relationship. I'm always like, go look first. If you cannot find it on Google, I want you to come back to me and I will help you. But I was like, I'm too busy right now. So unless you really need me, like I can't. That's funny.
Yeah, one thing I always do too, this is probably just me being a dick, but if somebody asks me a basic question like that, I'll record a Vimeo of me Googling the answer and I'll be like, oh, look, that was like one thing away. And they're like, okay, I get the point.
I've actually like taken like a screenshot of like, you know how AI like generates like a summary, and I've like copied and like pasted that for them. I'm like, I'm going to do exactly what you should be doing, because there's been times where I don't know the answer. And I'm like, say it's in like my Discord or something, and I don't know the answer because I've never had that issue. So I'm like, oh, okay, but like, it's my Discord. I'm going to help this person solve it. So I literally just Google it. I find the answer, and then I share it with them. And I'm like, You could have done that. You could have found that yourself. But I mean, that's part of the Discord though, right? Is so that way you have those places to like get the answers you need without having to go to outside sources. Plus,
And
I think once you're like in, like you do it enough, you kind of know where to look for too. Sometimes you go to Google and you type in the question, you don't know what's true, what's not. And I think the longer you do it, the more you can fish out like the fat, I guess. Like you can figure out what's like the fluff. There we go. You can figure out what's the fluff and what's like the legit stuff.
Yeah, I think too. Like I try not to be too like. It's hard to even understand how that people don't just have a natural inclination to do that stuff. But from a kid, you're trained to never think for yourself. Like in school, you just go to the book or you go to the teacher. You're never like, you figure it out. So I get why people, are like that. In sports or whatever you do as a kid, it's just like you never are taught to independently think. So I guess just pushing somebody at 24, 27, whatever years old, just be like, hey, now you got to go start your thing. I get why they're like, isn't there someone to just tell me what to do? It's like no, man.
Thing. Yeah, it's definitely like it's totally like dependent on that person and their life that they've lived. Like I don't know why you don't do that, but like not everybody in my family does it either, but we all grew up the same in a way. You know what I mean? So like I think it's really like personality based, and that's why I say like a true like I feel like entrepreneur like has that spirit in them essentially, like where it comes more naturally than other people. It means like anybody can do it, but like it's going to come more naturally to some people because that's just like the way their mind works. Their mind is just like, I don't know. It's hard to describe, right? It's just like in your like DNA or like the way your thought process is. Like you're not going to think like I probably don't think the same way you think, and like vice versa for John. Like we all think differently and we all like organize differently our thoughts in our head. So that's why it's kind of hard to help someone push past that. Because you've never been in their state. So unless you're like a psychologist, you don't really understand what's going on.
yeah, I like that a lot too. I feel like I get a ton of DMs. You can always just tell by like who's gonna make it or not by like kind of the questions that they ask, or like I know like there are a bunch of people too. Like sometimes they just keep asking question after question after question. It's like, wait a second, we've been talking for like 6 months. Did you ever do that first thing? And it's like, well, no. And it's just like, all right, like this is kind of over.
Or it's the people that like they ask about Amazon, like, okay, like, do you have an Amazon account? No, I haven't signed up yet. Why do you like go sign up first? Like go look at it and then come back. Like they hadn't even signed up. But a lot of people I think they're interested in it. Like, and so they ask about it, but they're not quite ready to actually try it out. And so that's the difference. They're like trying to gather all this information before. And I'm a big like believer in like just like this sounds dumb because it's Nike's logo, but like just do it. Like just start. And like take it one step at a time. Like with my brand, I have no idea. Like I'm like I have to make a listing for Amazon. I have to take photos. I have no idea how any of this works. But like that doesn't matter right now because I'm not at that stage. So like the other day I was starting to get like overwhelmed. I started thinking about it. I'm like, wait, I don't get overwhelmed by this. Why am I thinking about something I may not even have to do for 2 or 3 months? I don't need to know how to make an Amazon listing right now. Like all I need to focus on is creating like the logo and like the brand design. And then once I have that done, okay, what's my next step? So that's how I've always worked is like I take it step by step. So if you ask me, hey, what are you going to be doing like in 3 months when you're going to make a Walmart listing? Where are you going to get your photos? I'm going to say, I have no idea. Like that's not on my to-do list today. I'm not thinking about it. And that helps things not become very overwhelming because Amazon, some people want to know everything. I'm like, dude, like I don't even know everything still about Amazon. There's still probably some reports I have no idea that exist. But until I need to know that report, that thing can like hang out in the background. I don't need to know about it until it's time to know about it. So I think just focus on what you actually need to do, whether that's starting Amazon, make the account, start scanning products, like be super basic. Don't try to don't try to learn something you don't need to learn. Your mind can't like learn all these different things. It's going to become overwhelmed and then you don't do anything because you're just like, this is too much for me. I can't do it.
It's like the sports analogy. Like you can't, make it all the way back in one shot. Like I play basketball. So it's like you're down 20 points. You can't there's not a 20-point shot. Like you have to chip away at stuff. And I think when you look at the whole thing overall, you're like, I'm never going to get there. But it's like, it's not even the point. You have to go like one little step at a time. And then another thing is it's just never as hard as it seems. Like when you look at a big picture thing, I feel like it always looks overwhelming. But if you just break it down, it's not that hard. Like for example, at the beginning of last year, I was going to pay like $1,500 for some program that like got YouTube or Instagram videos and cleaned the video so I could repost it. Well, I coded the program in like 30 minutes on my own, and I don't even know how to code. Just chat GPT. I'm like, I'm going to just look it up. Let's just do one step at a time. It took me like 30 minutes, save $1,500. But it's like, it's never as hard and as like big as it seems. You just kind of take it one little step at a time, which I think most people don't really look at it like that.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. It's definitely like you said, chipping it away. Because yeah, you'll feel like it's impossible. Like if you're like, oh, I have to get back 20 points. I'm never going to do this. Well, you're probably going to like, your performance is going to show that, and you're probably not going to do it because you believe you can't. So yeah, it's super important just to like focus on what do you need to like get to the next step right now. Don't care about, this other person's talking about FBM orders and stuff. And you're like, returns. What if I get a return? Don't worry about it. Did you get a return yet? No, don't worry about it. And I've had to tell people that. They're like, well, what happens? I'm like, how does it happen? No, don't only worry about something when it happens. Now, obviously there's some cases where like, you don't want to wait for something to happen. Like you don't want to not have insurance and then something bad happens. Like, yes, don't wait until something bad happens in that case. But for the most part, if no one's going to get hurt or lose a lot of money in that sense, just take it step by step. And that's definitely the way that I've been operating with like my brand and like UGC and anything. It's just like, what is the first step I need to do? Okay, I need to reach out to brands on Instagram of interests that like align with my like interests. And like just go from there. Okay, when they respond, I'll figure out what to say to them then. And that's like the best way of doing things. And not feeling like imposter syndrome and like, what am I doing? Like I'm pretending to be this like big influencer or whatever. And it's like, no, just take it one time. Like everybody has to start somewhere. And just focus on like the journey. I think too many people just want like the big numbers and all the good stuff right away. And it's like, dude, like the journey is what gets you there. And like, you can look back and be like, dang, I just came so far versus like you turn on your computer and you've made $100,000 and you're like, oh, I just listed my first product and overnight, like I made all this money. Like, that's just not how it works.
The journey is the most fun part anyways. That's like, you look back all the time. You don't remember like the things you remember is like the struggles, like the 12K loss, that type of stuff. That is the stuff that's fun in hindsight. I always try to tell people that.
I laugh about it now. Like I don't cry. I mean, I feel like I laughed about it pretty early on too. Like probably 3 months after. Now I was blessed in the way that I had the money, to be able to fund that loss. If I didn't, yeah, that would have been really bad. But yeah, I agree.
What else you got, John? We kept you here for an hour and 10 minutes, so I won't keep you too much longer.
Yeah, well, I guess you've done a lot of different business models so far. Based on like kind of the state of everything right now, what would you recommend for someone or push them towards?
So that's a very like loaded question. Who is the person? Like, what is their like background? What are they interested in? Because I do a lot of different outlets. So like, I would never tell somebody right off the bat, go build a brand. I would never tell someone to do that. They need to like test out the water. So if you're coming from someone who wants to start selling online, I would say Amazon. And I would say like the easiest thing to get started is doing clearance shopping. I think that's the easiest if you're able to get into stores and just start looking at their clearance aisles, like scanning. That is the easiest because a lot less people do it and have access to it. And you can find profitable stuff a lot faster. And honestly, you kind of get that thrill of the hunt and it gives you that motivation to go do it. Now, if someone said, I can't do all right, then I say, okay, do OA. And just take it like step by step. So like they're going to be gated in a lot of things. So like when I think about it, I'm all, like, whenever I tell people this, I always feel like overwhelmed for them. Cause I'm like, oh yeah, just start doing OA. I'm like, but you're going to be gated a lot. So you're probably gonna have to buy like some stuff to get ungated. And then I'm like, I start to get overwhelmed. I'm like, oh gosh, they have a lot of work on their hands. But I would probably say like Amazon, 100%. See, but now I'm like, Walmart though is such a good opportunity. So I don't know what I would tell them. It's very subjective. Okay, give me a scenario. Like how much money do they have? Like experience. I need a scenario to guide them in like the best direction, I think.
Our listener. The people that, let's say that they are on Amazon right now, so that rules that one out.
Uh-huh.
And they like are kind of transitioning out of it. They're trying to like cut it down and do something else. I'm sure that's the scenario you're about to give too, John. That's like our listener. I feel like. I hope so.
If they want to do something else, then I would 100%. If they still like selling online and they enjoy that, I would say go to Walmart. It is way easier to find leads on Walmart. It's a lot like faster and smoother. It's cheaper, in my opinion, to sell on Walmart. So like the fees, I think, are a little bit less. And it's just a smooth process. It's very like clunky as far as listing and things like that. But it's very straightforward. Amazon has a lot of moving parts. Walmart, I don't feel like is as much. When they lose inventory, they like cash you out. Oh my gosh, they cashed me out so big on the inventory I lost. I'm like, I didn't even pay that much. It was amazing. So I would say Walmart. Like if I was restarting, I would be going to Walmart and I would put in all my efforts. I've seen a lot of people like double their sales versus what they had on Amazon just by going all into Walmart. So I think that's a really big opportunity. So if you're a seller, that's what I'm telling you to get into. That's the best like option. And all you have to do is just take all of your current items you're selling on Amazon, see if they flip on Walmart for higher, and fill in that like demand that's over there because there's a lot of demand on it. And it's still early enough. I mean, I got in there like a year ago when it was really good, but it's still really good. Like right now, it's still not like super saturated like you see with Amazon. There's still not a bunch of softwares out yet for it, like Keepa and things like that. So it still confuses enough people where it hasn't been like saturated.
Man, we've heard that so many times. That has to be the 10th person to tell us that. I
It's
think.
It's true. And I almost got into it, but it was just like, it was too much. And so Walmart was one of those things I dropped because it just didn't align with my goals and where I wanted to go. Because anytime you have to invest into inventory, you're essentially like, you have to put in money. You have to put in money for money to come out. And I didn't want to put in a lot of money. So like my base right now is I only spend no more than $5,000 in my inventory for Amazon every month. So it doesn't take away from like me building my like brand, because if you keep investing into your business, you're not making any money, you're investing it all. So I specifically pull back and I only set that hard limit. I don't care if there's a big sale that goes on the next day, like, well, that sucks. I'll wait until next month and I'll buy it at full price again or whatever. So
Sweet. All right. Is there anything else you want to leave the listeners with, and where can they find you?
Yeah, the other thing I would say, if they wanted to get into any type of UGC stuff, I would probably say like AIT is like a really easy gateway in, because it's not as like you just make the one video and you're done. So I would say that would be like the gateway of getting into like UGC stuff and getting comfortable in the camera. And it's not as like fast moving as like TikTok and like reaching out to brands is. But yeah, you guys can find me at Kona like _ content on Instagram. And you can also find me at Kona.content on TikTok. And that's pretty much it. I'm pretty much Kona content anywhere. And I have YouTube and like Twitter and all that stuff. I don't post on it too much, so I won't leave that there.
Sweet. Well, thanks so much, guys. Like, subscribe, go follow Noelle, and we will see you on the next episode.
And go bug her with simple questions.
Yeah.
Peace.
Peace.